The knife stops mid-air for just a second, not long enough for anyone else in the kitchen to notice, but long enough for him. Steam rises from a row of metal pots, carrying the smell of boiled potatoes and beef broth into the thick summer air of Louisiana. It is August 14th, 1945, just after noon, inside a U.S. Army mess hall at Camp Claiborne. Outside, someone shouts the news. Japan has surrendered. The war is over. For a moment, everything seems to
If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.
freeze. Then the room erupts. Soldiers cheer, trays slam, boots pound the wooden floor. But the man holding the knife does not move. His name is Heinrich Bauer. Just 3 years ago, he wore a gray uniform and marched under a different flag. Now he stands in an American kitchen, dressed in white, feeding the very army he once fought against. And in that strange, quiet pause, he realizes something he never expected. He does not want to leave. You can almost feel the heat pressing against his skin as the noise fades into the background. For most men in that room, the war ending means one thing: home. But for Heinrich, home is a place that no longer exists in the way he remembers. And the country around him, the one he once called enemy, has slowly become something else. Not just a place of captivity, but a place of routine, of purpose, and in some ways, of peace. It is a thought he would have laughed at in 1943. But now, standing there with a knife in his hand and steam rising around him, it feels real. To understand how a German soldier ends up here, in the heart of an American military camp, you have to go back to a very different place. A cold morning on the Eastern Front, January 1943, near the outskirts of Kharkov. Snow covers everything, thick and heavy, turning the landscape into a silent white field broken only by blackened trees and abandoned equipment. Heinrich Bauer is 24 years old, a Gefreiter in the German army, assigned to a logistics unit responsible for food supply. He is not a frontline fighter, but that does not mean he is safe. Nothing on the Eastern Front is safe. You can almost hear the distant rumble of artillery as he and his unit move along a narrow road, their truck loaded with sacks of flour and canned meat. The engine struggles in the cold. The men inside speak little. They have learned that silence is better. Less to say means less to think about. But then it happens, a sudden explosion ahead. The road is gone. Smoke rises where a vehicle once stood. Soviet forces have cut them off. What follows is chaos. Orders shouted, men jumping from trucks, rifles raised, boots sinking into snow. Heinrich remembers the sound more than anything else. The sharp crack of gunfire echoing across the frozen ground. He fires when told, moves when told, but everything feels distant, like he is watching it happen to someone else. Within minutes, it is over. His unit is surrounded. There is no escape. When the order to surrender comes, it feels unreal. German soldiers do not talk about surrender. But here, on this cold road in January, it becomes the only option left. Heinrich drops his rifle. His hands shake, not from fear, but from the cold. Soviet soldiers move in, shouting, pushing, searching. He expects the worst. Many do. The stories about captivity on the Eastern Front are not good. And for some of his comrades, those stories become reality. But Heinrich's path takes an unexpected turn. Weeks later, after a long and exhausting transfer through overcrowded rail cars and temporary holding camps, Heinrich finds himself handed over to Allied forces as part of a prisoner exchange and transport process that moves certain POWs westward. It is not common, but it happens. And by late 1943, after a long journey across the Atlantic, he arrives in the United States. The first thing that surprises him is the size, the space. As the transport ship docks and the prisoners are moved inland by train, Heinrich watches through small windows as miles of open land pass by. It feels endless, nothing like the tight villages and crowded towns of Europe. And then there is the quiet. No bombs, no distant gunfire, just wind, trees, and the sound of the train tracks. And he is assigned to Camp Claiborne in Louisiana, one of several POW camps set up across the United States during the war. By this time, thousands of German prisoners have been brought to America, held under the rules of the Geneva Convention. Heinrich does not know what to expect, but what he finds is not what he imagined. You can almost feel his confusion as he steps into the camp for the first time. The guards are watchful, but not cruel. The barracks are simple, but clean. There is food, regular meals, bread that is fresh, not hard, soup that is warm, not watered down. It feels wrong to think it, but compared to the conditions he has seen on the front, this is better. At first, Heinrich keeps to himself. Like many prisoners, he expects this to be temporary. The war will end, and he will go home. That is the plan. That is what everyone believes. But days turn into weeks, and weeks into months. Routine sets in, and with routine comes something dangerous: stability. Morning comes early in the camp. You can almost hear the whistle cut through the humid air just before sunrise, around 5:30 a.m. Prisoners line up for roll call, boots on packed dirt, the ground still damp from night rain. Guards move down the rows, counting, checking faces. It is methodical, predictable. After roll call comes breakfast. Bread, sometimes eggs, sometimes oatmeal, always coffee, thin but hot. Heinrich begins to notice something small but important. The Americans feed their prisoners regularly. Not generously, but fairly. It changes the mood. Men who expected cruelty find routine instead. It is during this time that his skills begin to matter. Before the war, Heinrich worked in his father's bakery in a small town near Munich. He knows food, not just how to eat it, but how to prepare it, how to stretch it, how to make something simple feel like more. When camp officials begin assigning POWs to work details, Heinrich volunteers for kitchen duty. At first, it is basic: peeling potatoes, carrying sacks, cleaning pots. But it does not take long for someone to notice. A U.S. Army mess sergeant named Staff Sergeant William Carter watches as Heinrich works. There is something precise about the way he handles food, the way he measures without tools, the way he adjusts seasoning by smell alone. Carter is not a man easily impressed. He has fed hundreds of soldiers, seen every kind of cook, but this German prisoner is different. One afternoon, after watching him for several days, Carter gives him a chance, a simple task: prepare a batch of stew. You can almost feel the tension in that moment. Heinrich knows what is at stake, even if no one says it out loud. This is more than food. It is trust. He works carefully, using what he has. Army rations are not the same as a bakery back home, but he adapts. He always has. When the stew is served that evening, something changes. Soldiers notice. The taste is better, richer. Even Carter, who rarely comments, nods slightly as he takes a second spoonful. It is a small moment, but for Heinrich, it means everything. From that point on, his role shifts. He is no longer just another prisoner assigned to kitchen duty. He becomes part of the system, trusted in a limited way, but trusted nonetheless. Over time, he is given more responsibility, helping plan meals, managing portions, even training other POWs and assisting American cooks. By late 1944, Heinrich is waking up before most of the camp. Around 4:45 a.m., the kitchen lights flicker on. You can almost see him stepping into the warm, dim space, the smell of yesterday's bread still hanging faintly in the air. He checks supplies, counts sacks, notes shortages. War means rationing, even here. Sugar is limited. Fresh vegetables arrive inconsistently. Meat quality varies, but he learns to adjust. If there is less meat, he thickens soups. If bread is scarce, he changes portions. It is not just cooking anymore, it is management. You can almost hear the rhythm of the kitchen as it comes alive. Knives on wood, Pots shifting, water boiling, orders being called. American soldiers move in and out, sometimes joking, sometimes quiet. At first, they keep distance from the prisoners, but over time, something shifts. A nod here, a short exchange there. Not friendship, but familiarity. War creates enemies. Routine creates something more complicated. Months pass. The war in Europe intensifies, then begins to turn. News reaches the camp in fragments. The fall of cities, the advance of Allied forces. By early 1945, it is clear that Germany is losing. For many prisoners, this brings mixed emotions. Relief that the fighting may end. Fear of what comes next. Heinrich feels both, but he also feels something else, a growing sense that his life has moved in a direction he never planned and may never fully reverse. When Germany surrenders in May 1945, the camp changes again. Guards relax slightly. The atmosphere shifts. For American soldiers, it is victory. For the prisoners, it is uncertainty. Repatriation will come, but no one knows exactly when. Some prisoners begin to talk more openly about home, about cities that may no longer stand, about families they have not heard from in years. You can almost feel that quiet tension in the barracks at night, men lying awake, staring at wooden ceilings, wondering what waits for them across the ocean. Heinrich continues to work in the kitchen. It is what he knows, what he does well, but now, every day carries a question. What happens when he leaves? And then comes August 14th, 1945, the day the war truly ends, the day the news reaches the mess hall, and everything erupts into celebration. For most, it is the end of something terrible. For Heinrich, it is the beginning of a decision he never expected to face. In the weeks that follow, our preparations begin to send prisoners back to Europe. Lists are made, names are called. Men pack what little they have. Some are eager to go, others are quiet, unsure of what they will find when they return. Heinrich is among those scheduled for transport, but something holds him back. The Germany he left is not the Germany he will return to. Cities destroyed, families scattered, an uncertain future in a country rebuilding from ruin. At the same time, the life he has built here, however strange it may seem, offers something different. Stability, work, a sense of purpose that has grown slowly, almost without him noticing. You can almost feel the weight of that choice pressing on him as he stands outside the barracks one evening, the Louisiana air heavy and still. Cicadas hum in the trees. The sky turns dark slowly, and heavy clouds drifting across a fading orange horizon. He thinks about the bakery back home, the smell of fresh bread in the early morning, his father's voice. Those memories are real. But so is the kitchen here, the routine, the quiet respect he has earned. Around this time, something else begins to change. Heinrich starts helping American cooks beyond assigned tasks, not because he is told to, but because he wants to. He suggests small improvements, how to stretch flour, how to keep bread softer longer in humid air. Carter notices. He begins to rely on him, not as a prisoner, but as someone who understands the work deeply. The decision does not come all at once. It forms slowly, piece by piece, until one day he speaks to Staff Sergeant Carter. The conversation is simple, direct. Heinrich asks if there is any way for him to stay, that not as a prisoner, but as a worker, as a cook. Carter does not answer immediately. It is not a simple request. There are rules, procedures, politics, but he sees something in Heinrich, not just skill, but intent. A man who has found a path forward and is willing to follow it, even if it leads somewhere unexpected. What follows is a long process. Paperwork, interviews, background checks. It is not common, but it is not impossible. In the months after the war, the United States allows certain former POWs to remain, especially those who can contribute skills and are willing to integrate. During this waiting period, Heinrich lives in a strange space between two identities, no longer just a prisoner, but not yet free. He continues working in the kitchen, but now every task feels heavier, more important. This is no longer about passing time. It is about proving something, that he can belong here, that he can build something new from what remains. By early 1946, Heinrich Bauer is no longer just a prisoner. He becomes a civilian worker attached to the U.S. Army, continuing his role in military kitchens. It is not a grand transformation. There are no celebrations, just a quiet shift from one status to another. But for Heinrich, it is everything. You can almost see him months later, standing in a different kitchen, this time not behind a line of guards, but as part of the staff. The uniform is different, the responsibilities are greater, but the work is the same: preparing food, feeding people, creating something steady in a world that has been anything but. Years pass, camps close, soldiers rotate home, the world moves on, but Heinrich stays. He moves between bases, always in the kitchen, always working. Over time, his accent softens slightly. His routines become fully American. But he never forgets where he came from. In the late 1940s, he is transferred to another base, this time further north. The seasons change. Winters return, colder than Louisiana, but different from the Eastern Front. Not filled with fear, but with routine. You can almost see him standing outside a mess hall early in the morning, breath visible in the cold air, waiting for deliveries, checking lists. By the early 1950s, he is known not as a former prisoner, but simply as the cook, the man who makes sure meals are ready on time, the one who knows exactly how long to boil potatoes so they are never too soft, the one who can stretch supplies without anyone noticing. You can almost feel the quiet respect around him. That young soldiers who never fought in the war eat his food without knowing his past. To them, he is just a part of the system, reliable, consistent, always there before sunrise. Sometimes late at night, when the kitchen is empty and the last pot has been cleaned, Heinrich stands alone for a moment. The noise gone, the routine paused, and in that silence, memories return. The snow-covered road near Kharkov, the sound of gunfire, the long journey across the ocean. It all feels distant, like another life, but it is still there. He does not speak about it often, not because he is hiding it, but because it no longer defines him the way it once did. What defines him now is simpler: work, routine, purpose. And if you stand in one of those kitchens years later, watching steam rise from a row of pots, you might not know his full story. That you might not realize that the man stirring that soup once stood on a frozen road in Eastern Europe holding a rifle instead of a ladle. That he crossed an ocean not by choice, but by capture. That he made a life in a place he once called enemy. But if you look closely, you might see it in the way he works. The precision, the focus, the quiet understanding that life can change in ways no one expects. And in that moment, you realize something simple but powerful. Not every story of war ends on the battlefield. Some continue in the most unexpected places, in kitchens, in routines, in the quiet decision of one man who chose not to go back, but to move forward in a land that was once foreign and became, over time, something like home.
If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.